Zealot in his deck. And one of the cool things he can do is cast Hellfire with it, but we're not even going to see that.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm really not too familiar with the way that Priest works at all, other than the Divine Spirit Interfire part of this deck. I saw it crop up at the very tail end of my practice last week, and then I had to jump on a flight, and I was like, well, okay.
Probably won't see this again.
Of course it's in the finals. Of course it's in the finals.
I mean, it's just kind of like that old style that was around before, you know, everything got crazy and when it had the Dragon package. It still has that Dragon package, not as strong as it previously was, but one thing that this deck does do is it catches people off guard, not only in the Swiss rounds.
Yeah.
But it also just has such powerful turns and appears to be very strong against what would be considered a lot of the decks in the field.
Just giving you guys an idea of what's in here. Dragon package, of course, 2 Twilight Acolytes. It's the guy that swaps the power with himself and another unit. 2 Twilight Drakes, 2 Duskbreakers, Bone Drake, and 2 Primordial Drakes. The rest of the deck, you're looking at a bunch of card draw stuff with some Radiant Elementals, some Shadow Visions, of course, Divine Spirit Interfire, Master Spell, 2 Cabal Shadow Priest, and then 2 Unidentified Elixir, a card I've actually never seen used outside of this week.
Yeah, Unidentified Elixir has been putting in tremendous amounts of work. I mean, we saw Zalae play earlier where he actually burned his Interfire and didn't have the second one because he had used it earlier on in the game, and he still got there on the back of a Unidentified Elixir, giving lifesteal to a 620 Primordial Drake.
I don't even know what all the modes are.
It's Divine Shield,
All right.
Lifesteal,
Death Rattle.
Death Rattle, return it to the hand, and summon a 1/1 copy.
That's what the fourth one. I couldn't remember the fourth one.
I mean, overall, just a fairly solid card.
It seems like it should be used.
I think Priest never really had that option to use it.
It's never had that oomph.
You need cards that go oomph.
Yeah.
Those are the best cards, the ones that go oomph.
Doomsayer provides a little refund to Zalae with that Northshire Cleric, but that's a very powerful turn to be hitting, making sure that Northshire Cleric's not a nuisance down the road. But it's just a 2 thing. That's the second voice line I've heard from Vulgar Homunculus. I didn't know it said 2 different things.
I think it says like 2 or 3.
I didn't know that.
I know it says easy. I don't know what else it says, but I know it says other things.
I didn't know that.
That's because he's vulgar.
That's cool.
Very, very vulgar homunculus.
I'm very appreciative of like the voice lines and stuff like that. I'm surprised I didn't know that.
I must consider.
Zalae here trying to weigh out his options. I think he knows that Mountain Giant is on the horizon. Trying to find the best way to set up into it. He can go for, you know, Radiant Elemental Shield. But every time he uses a shield, he has to be more wary of how the combo kind of works out later on down the road.
Yeah, it's important to note that Amnesiac, you know, he's doing a considerable amount of damage to himself. And I just forgot about Twilight Acolyte, honestly. It makes a lot of sense to play this deck versus even Warlock because of those 2 factors. You know, makes your Divine Spirit Interfire combo a little bit easier to achieve. If they play a Mountain Giant, sometimes it's a liability because of the Twilight Acolyte. Kind of interesting.
Looks like Zalae's just going to tempo out that Radiant Elemental, not going to commit that shield. And I like this. A lot of times we've seen players, what they'll do is they'll save the shield. That way when they go Twilight Acolyte onto the Mountain Giant, they can then shield the Twilight Acolyte so it doesn't die to an upgraded Spellstone.
Yeah.
And that's a very strong play coming out from Zalae.
Also protects from the attack and Hellfire.
Exactly. A lot of things that it protects from.
It's definitely a cool thing to note.
It's really nice to see just that high level play coming out from both these players, just thinking that far ahead. I mean, I think the play here is Mountain Giant, but Amnesiac's definitely going to sit on this for a little bit. I think the debate was whether he tapped or not.
Well, I'm going to guess Acolyte's slated. That seems fairly straightforward.
I definitely think Power Word Shield is going to be committed onto the Acolyte. Can even bump into the Vulgar Homunculus and hero power back up the Radiant Elemental.
must consider.
I'm trying to see an opportunity for if like can he ever take the damage? I just can't imagine that. Yep.
No, there's really no world. Picks up a Shadow Visions. If that finds Divine Spirit, he could commit it now. That's insanely weak to Spellbreaker.
Yeah, there's a copy of Spellbreaker in Amnesiac's deck. I think he's much more interested in the heal. You know, right now it seems like a pretty big fight simply for the board presence. And so the first player able to really take advantage of that, I think, was that hit second Mountain Giant for Zalae. I'm sorry, for Amnesiac, though. Ooh.
That's a very important draw here.
Yeah.
It's going to allow to give him the pressure that he needs to try and end this game before Zalae can assemble any kind of combination of cards.
That's the other thing, too, though. You know, when you play against the Divine Spirit Interfire decks, you have to respect the potential for that explosion of damage. And so when that's the case, you know, how much duty then does that Mountain Giant have on making sure the board's fairly clean before you make a big commitment like that? You know, the other thing, too, is that Mountain Giant at 2/8, even that can become a liability right now. You know, if Zalae steals out the Cabal Shadow Priest, and suddenly you look at that and you're like, oh my gosh, like that's a major threat.
Yeah, that is a lot of damage with some Divine Spirits and Interfires.
It's starting to make a lot more sense to me now why he queued this up as well. This is a pretty strong game plan against what even Warlock is trying to do. I like this a lot.
I do like the queue up, but the one thing I'm thinking of is how these next matchups are going to pan out. Now, let's say Zalae ends up, you know, losing this match. I think the Priest is better into the Shaman than the Rogue is. So I think I personally would have liked to see maybe the Rogue into the Warlock. Because if you get that win, then you lose with the Shaman, then you've got Priest against Shaman. I think that's overall a pretty good matchup.
I'll let you handle that expertise, because as far as I can see right now, I have no idea how this Priest deck works against a Shaman. I'd have to, you know, once I start seeing it kind of unfold, I get a better idea of that. But I have 0 games logged on this Priest.
I mean, it's just very powerful cards in the Priest deck, like Dustbreaker, just to be able to clear the board. You know, just the combination of Twilight Acolyte and Cabal to, you know, steal some of those threats like the Sea Giant. It's got a lot of tools.
I can see it.
So I'm a little worried that if Zalae ends up losing to the Warlock, which I do think this may end up being Priest favored. If he does lose, he's going to have to win Miracle Rogue into Even Shaman. And I'm not too familiar with that matchup, but it seems as if Even Shaman go very wide on the board and just end the game pretty quickly.
Power Word Shield for a little more card draw.
You know, all he needs is a Divine Spirit if, you know, Amnesiac cannot address this, but he does have 2 fully upgraded Spellstones.
He's really close to that Hooked Reaver territory too, but that's one of the problems I think with the Spellstone is it pulls you back out of that. You know, he really wants to get Hooked Reaver online and have that represent, you know, like a pseudo Mountain Giant basically.
He does, but I'm loving the Giant Coin Spellstone just to clean up the Twilight Drake and put an 8/8 on the board. Forces Zalae to have that second Twilight Acolyte that we can see he does not have.
That's a big turn. Whew.
Some big minions coming on the board, Admirable.
Yeah, big minions are sweet.
I love Giants.
It's not even a text, just a big thing.
It's got a little text.
Well, it's pretty
It
cool.
has to have text.
Yeah. It's to cast it is all, though. Not to...
Just to put it on the board and say, you know what, deal with it.
Once it's there, just a big old thing.
What Zalae can really do right now is play Twilight Drake, shield it. It doesn't seem too great. He has to go for it, though. It's the only line of play he has. Oh, there's a Divine Spirit.
But that Spellbreaker's sitting in Amnesiac's hand.
Oh, he's going to commit it. I don't think he says that he
boy.
wins this game any other way. That Spellbreaker is just a huge punish. Zalae's defense, there's only one Spellbreaker in the deck.
I mean, I'm not going to blame anyone for going for this. It's like one turn off of being able to possibly kill your opponent. And that's just, that is not the sight you wanted to see. Amnesiac even trades, very mindful of the health total. Just losing the Spellbreaker as well in the midst of like a Duskbreaker or something here.
I do like the trade. I do think the trade needed to happen.
It looked a little weird to me, but it makes sense.
Duskbreaker does look pretty good here. Doesn't address the Mountain Giant. Shroom Brewer comes out. This Mountain Giant gets back to being very healthy.
That's been one of the most important facets, I think, to take note of in some of these games is Amnesiac's been using the Mountain Giants to just keep the board clean.
I mean, that's the thing with this Inner Fire Priest. If it just never has access to a board state, never has one minion on the board, there's no way it can win.
It's got to stick something.
It has to stick something eventually. That's so hard to do, especially when Amnesiac's deck runs a lot of removal. And he had the majority of it. Double upgraded Spellstone.
So many possibilities.
Liking this. Just play another big minion after big minion.
That's what this deck does too. Just it draws so many cards that if your cards just even go, they just go even with your opponent, you get ahead. If they're pulling weight against your opponent, it's like, oh my gosh, how do you beat this? Like Zalae, everything Zalae has played has just died.
Zalae wants to commit this Primordial Drake here, but if he just commits it, there's a lot of punishes.
Lich King is living for another turn. This is disaster territory.
I think Zalae knows it too.
And if he tries to just contest it with a Primordial Drake, I mean, I'm looking at the spell power plus the 7 damage Spellstone.
That kills it so cleanly.
And then the Lich King's still alive, but it hit you for 8 as well.
It just keeps pushing damage.
Wow.
Just gonna draw a card.
I respect this too. This is probably right. The other plays look bad.
All the other plays are pretty bad. Maybe hoping to find a Twilight Acolyte. That way he could steal the Lich King. I think that's Zalae's last hope right now. Is strong that second Twilight Acolyte and taking a Lich King from Amnesiac and hopefully pulling off a miracle.
Now Gul'dandron as well. This is looking downhill quick.
So many possibilities.
The funny thing is Amnesiac could even just Death Grip that Twilight Acolytes. That's not even a possibility. I think that's Zalae's game plan right now. If he casts that Death Grip and takes it, that's never a possibility anymore.
I'd be a little surprised if he spent his mana in Death Grip this turn. A little bit.
I mean, what else does he have to do this turn?
Well, life tap's on the menu, of course. He's got Argent Commander. You know, you could start mitigating draw.
You got that 2 mana left over though.
And 2-drop.
I mean, there's Doomsayer, there's the Tainted, there's Sun Fury. I don't know. But getting a 2-drop on the board is a little bit more pressure. Wow. Respecting every single minion.
It's just going to choke him out. That's the game plan. Choke out everything Zalae could possibly buff. Why not?
If you're this far ahead, the only way you lose is by letting them stick one thing.
Sometimes it's kind of weird to look at, but in Hearthstone matchups, when you get ahead, it's like instead of trying to close the game, you just keep getting more ahead. It's like a weird snowball effect where eventually you completely squelch out the resources from your opponent. There's nothing they can do.
And this is going to be 8 damage push to face, like you said.
Even to the Tainted Zealot, just knowing that the Divine Shield would live through AoE, he effectively like unlocked 2 more mana this turn if he wants to Spellstone on this Primordial Drake. With the way he's played so far, I wouldn't be surprised to see him just trade the Lich King, but you know, if he's playing the Tainted Zealot last turn, it feels to me like he's anticipating a turn like this.
I wouldn't be surprised to see the Sun Fury Protector, the Spellstone, and the Anti-Magic Shell. And just start pushing damage face.
And that's you know, kind of what I'm thinking. You know, not that Amnesiac's being like, well, I'm going to draw Anti-Magic Shell and get him. But, you know, if you draw Anti-Magic Shell, you get another benefit from that Tainted Zealot. It's a compounding interest payment almost. Just so much saved this way.
I think that's what he's going to go for here.
Yep.
This is a very strong play coming out from Amnesiac. Sometimes, though, if they can take the Lich King, that can get a little troublesome because it's a little obnoxious to deal with.
I mean, Twilight Acolyte is about the only card that could possibly get that done, and Amnesiac's hand is just stacked even beyond that.
This also just sets up lethal through hero power. Even if Zalae could clear 2 of the minions off and leave the Lich King up.
Can't really do any of that.
Just gonna have to play the minion in the way and hope it gets him there.
Well, a 416 taunt will typically slow someone down a bit.
That's about all. It's just a speed bump on Amnesiac's victory. It's a big speed bump.
Whoa.
What was that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a Primordial Drake.
Yeah. Happens all the time.
Hate it when I run over those. Amnesiac probably just doing the math here, seeing if there's any way to, you know, get lethal. Could Death Coil, could cast Hellfire, the Zealot on the board. Trying to file. Don't think there's quite a clear. I could be wrong.
Well, you can clear it. I mean, just tax it.
Okay, you are right.
Yeah.
But I meant clear and then push the lethal damage.
Oh, no. I mean, it's 16 on board you got to get through. 16's a lot, but the problem is just the minions are living. Like, Lich King's not dead. It's drawing another Lich King card.
I mean, he was one off lethal. I think this is about it for Zalae.
That's it.
Nothing he can do.
Game 3. Amnesiac's on a 2-1 lead, and now Zalae is down to Miracle Rogue. And that's exactly what he's going to need. He's got to win 2 straight if he wants to win this DreamHack. He's come all this way. He's battled so hard.